Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is so nice to be able to see you in 3D and in person. Thank you for, I know 3D, True. It was just 2D over there and all those tubes and those little windows. So we are excited to host our 2021 Civic Affairs Community Issues Session. These sessions, which line up with our community fund grant cycles, they provide an opportunity for the community to learn about current events and issues in Summit County. Our nonprofit partners, they prepare key information to share at these sessions, and it is our hope that the information presented enhances your knowledge and awareness of the ongoing projects, services, and the work in our communities. I would like to introduce some members of our board, as well as our Community Investment Committee. This includes our board chair, Sylvia Trundle. Sylvia, thank you. We also have, thank you, yes. She just started, so we do need that warm welcome. We also have members of the board, including Katie Smucker.
Hi, everyone.
Jody Constant. There we go. Darren Weimer. And Sandy Selby. Please take a moment to mingle with them after the session if we have some time. And before I introduce our guest speakers, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're currently on. We honor and acknowledge the first people to occupy this land that today we call Akron. The names they used to identify themselves are largely unknown to us. However, the Native American nations who were stewards of this land before the arrival of the first Europeans included the Seneca and Cayuga from the Iroquois Confederacy, the Huron, the Shawnee, the Ojibwe or Chippewa, and the Lenni Lenape, who were also called Delaware. We recognize that we owe a debt to these Indian nations who were forcibly removed from the land they sustained for hundreds of years. Thanks. And today, with the help of our guest speakers, we will explore how parks and outdoor spaces shape and enhance our communities. Please help me by welcoming our two guest speakers, Dan Rice, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Ohio Erie Canalway Coalition, and Lisa King, Executive Director of Summit Metro Parks.
Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see this room used in the way that we had intended. So we appreciate you being sort of our first group. Do you feel like guinea pigs? You don't need to. We planned it so that we could set it up this way. So it's nice to see it in action. So welcome to Summit Lake Nature Center. We are fully open, and many of the faces I see here were here with us when we opened a couple of weeks ago. So we're feeling more in our element now that we're open and functioning. Mondays and Tuesdays, just in case you want to know, are closed. Those are our maintenance days. That's kind of our weekend because Saturdays and Sundays, as you can imagine, are extremely busy here on the towpath. All right, so we have a lot to talk about today. So you might know Metro Parks, but in case you don't, here's what we are about. You know, we have 14,500 acres. Show of hands, who knew that? It's okay, a couple of you, that's good. It's okay if you didn't, that's fine. 16 parks, although we'll be opening our 17th here very soon. We have a lot of trails. 150 miles is a lot. 66 of that is, it says 22, but if you add in the Freedom Trail and our Bike and Hike Trail, a total of 66 miles of multi-purpose trail. And then we have a lot of visits. You see that number, that 6 million? We thought that was wrong when it came in. This was, of course, after last year. We did see 1 million additional visits last year. And it was a combination not only of new visitors, but also through some polling that we did, we found out that the people that were our regulars were coming even more regularly. So if they came a couple days a week, they were increasing that during COVID. All of those things we love very, very much. Also, our mission. We are an Ohio Revised Code 1545 park. What in the world does that mean? That means the state dictates what our mission is. So our mission really hasn't changed. We are 100 years old this year, and the mission is pretty much the same. We are here to serve you. We are here to conserve land for your use and enjoyment. So our mission has been tweaked a little bit over the years. I tweaked it myself when I became the director, and I added the word community because we wanted to sink our roots even deeper into our communities, and this is the manifestation of a version of that. So we are here in a more urban environment than we've ever been in. When we came down here as part of the project we're going to talk about, we fell in love with this community, and it took them a while to get to know us, which was fine. We were very patient, we listened, and this is ultimately how we decided we could be a presence here. So Dan, we're going to show you how we work together. We're talking about how our missions are similar.
Sure. Actually, y'all can hear me. Okay, thanks, John. John's heard me speak before. So, like Lisa, thank you so much for taking time out of your daily lives or your personal time to be here with us today. And I also want to acknowledge Christina. I really appreciate your recognition of our Indigenous people. I know actually in Canada, that's a regular practice that they actually do at any type of gathering. So thank you. And as you were reading that, it really reminded me of where we are. It's really unfortunate that you aren't looking at the view we got. Because it's spectacular. You probably noticed when Lisa was talking, I was paying attention to what she was saying, but I was looking out the windows here. And to really kind of bring it back to Christina's point, this is a special place. It's special in so many ways, but to go back to the Indigenous people, they knew it was special even before we knew it was special. You literally have 10,000 years of transportation history right outside the window there. This is right along the Portage Path. So native peoples literally were transporting all the way through here. And then of course, white settlers came through and changed it, altered it. Depending upon your perspective of that, Captain Richard Howe, whose building we occupy, the engineer for the Ohio Erie Canal, redesigned Summit Lake so that the Ohio Erie Canal can still go through Summit Lake. And it still does go through Summit Lake. Many people may not know that, but it still flows through there. And then, you have the amusement park, but it wasn't an equitable amusement park, wasn't welcoming for all people. And then, we really isolate this neighborhood with our highways. So there's just a lot of history here, as Lisa, kind of alluded to. We'll talk more about this, but that's why I guess I come back to a special place. This place is very sacred. This neighborhood is very sacred. And we're just privileged and honored to be able to partner with some Metro Parks in the City of Akron and all of our partners in this neighborhood. And as Lisa said, this is going to be a different kind of presentation. Normally, one organization presents a slide and the other organization is almost like you're competing. We intentionally wanted to do the opposite because we do not compete. We complement each other. And we really just kind of wanted to show how the missions overlap with each other because we can't do our work without Summit Metro Parks and vice versa. Matter of fact, from our coalition standpoint, we can't do anything without anybody's help because we have no authorities and we don't have all the money. So we have to work through partnerships and collaborations. It's the foundation of what we do. But we don't do it because we have to do it. We do it because we want to do it. We do it because it's the right way to do it. Quite frankly, in our opinion, it's the only way to do it. And so, you see the mission up there. But also, more importantly, where we actually, Lisa, don't go out of the frame there because we're getting chastised there.
You're fine. You're still in frame. You're good.
We're good. We're good. Okay. All right. Because I want to get yelled at.
I see you.
Okay. But the other connection is, Congressman John Cyberling, Congressman Ralph Regula. I see a lot of nodding heads there. And those of you who know me, I'm a little bit passionate. But one thing that I really care a lot about, I know, is that we stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us. If it wasn't for Congressman John Cyberling, it's too bad actually Francis Cyberling Buckholder could be here this evening, carrying on that legacy, or Congressman Ralph Regula, we would not be here. We would not have these great assets. And if there's one thing we really want you to take away from our presentation today, is we are so blessed and fortunate to have these great assets. People tell us all the time. They go to South Carolina and they go to Arizona. Don't get me wrong, those are great places. But they come back and they say, oh my God, they don't have a national park. They don't have state parks. They don't have a metropolitan park. They don't have county parks, city parks. And they don't have a 101-mile recreational trail. So we owe a lot of a debt of gratitude to these individuals. Obviously, Congressman John Cyberling was instrumental in the creation of some Metro Parks. His fingerprint, thumbprints are everywhere, as well as the Ohio Erie Canalway. And to me, the ironic thing is, when the Ohio Erie Canalway was really created and it was discussed back in the 1960s, they actually wanted to create a national park. Not too many people know about this. From Cleveland down to New Philadelphia, it was going to be called the Richard Nixon National Park. I kid you not. If you go back and look at the history, it's there. So isn't it interesting how we make better decisions than we go forward? But then Mr. Wrigley comes along, and I would tell you, I've had the honor and pleasure of working with so many of you all, and as well as elected officials who unfortunately are no longer with us, people like the Constantines. And Mr. Wrigley would often tell me he's worked on a lot of projects, but the thing that he was most proud of was the Ohio Erie Canalway and the Towpath Trail. And if you see me again distracted up here, it's because I'm always constantly looking at people using the trail. And if you ask me what motivates me, that's it. People in the neighborhood, people using the trail. That if we do this right, matter of fact, there's a guy out there riding a bike with a fishing pole. If we do this right, and this will be here for another 200 years. That's the opportunity we have as a community. And that's an awesome responsibility. Many of you all know my great-grandfather was a Baptist minister, so I can get going on a roll here, so I apologize. If I get old preaching at times, I apologize. Obviously, our footprint, is 4 counties, 101 miles. We have a national park. We got metropolitan park agencies, all sorts of amazing partners who really enable us to fulfill our mission. I'm going to kick it back to you for the complimentary missions, and I'm going to make sure I stay in the.
Well, you could see and understand pretty easily how our missions complement one another. But there's sort of a deeper level that Dan and I aspire to, and that is the work that we do not only serves the public, but it also needs to include the public's voices. So, what you're seeing up here, there's a couple of slides that are sort of the result of that. Of course, the trail, kids, enjoying the outdoors, but you also see a couple of the things that lead to the correct facility in the right place, the right size, at the right time for what the people want. So, interesting that this is, the map that you see with the sticky notes, that was a more recent project where we used that method to gain their thoughts. So, sticky notes and Sharpies on tables, we are presenting ideas and questions that we want their input on. And they would, put those sticky notes in areas, and maybe not necessarily on this one, although we might have cleaned this up and moved the sticky notes to the edges. We wanted them to write what they thought about an area and stick it on the area. So, we would understand what their thoughts were. If you're not asking the questions, how do you know that it's going to be successful? How do you know that you're giving them what they say they want and they need? So, that public input is pivotal with everything that we do. And I can say with honesty, I've been with the Metro Parks for over 22 years, and there, in the beginning, we never did that. We weren't always asking the public. And when I recognized that was happening, I knew that, that was something I wanted to have a hand in changing, and then fast forward, I was able to have that voice and make that change. So we were, what were we doing? We were planning things that the staff thought was what was needed. Well, that's one way to do it, and I think that what we found over time is maybe not the best way to do it. I think it served us okay, but I feel like we're doing better now because we're able to respond to what the public is saying they need from a park district, they want from a park district. And I also feel like it also empowers us to understand where change is coming or going. So, you have to have some new things, you have to keep those old things that work, but trends come and go, and you have to understand, try the best that you can, how to serve into the future. So I think that, Dan also feels that way too. The public input phase of every project is something that we have built into how we function for new projects.
Because one of the things we're learning is there's been a legacy of things been done to and not with, and things promised not delivered. And that gets to the gulf of mistrust. And we definitely experience that here in the Summit Lake community. And what we always like to start with is how might we? And if you think about that, that's incredibly inviting. How might we? It implies we're doing this together. So we're not doing anything to people, we're doing things with people. Co-design, co-steward, co-creation.
Oops, sorry, went too far. You want to talk about this?
Well, I mean, and this is just really kind of an extension of really, so if you think about it, and by the way, Summit County was the first county in the state of Ohio to have a county-wide trail plan. They're the first county and actually the only county, to the best of my knowledge, that actually uses county dollars to actually build trails. And again, that doesn't happen by accident because we have incredible leadership here at the county executive office, the county council, and some of the metro parks. And so this is just really an extension. So you have this spine, You know, we'd like to think of it as a trunk of a tree, but a tree's not a tree unless you got branches to the tree, right? So really, again, through some of Metro Parks' incredible leadership, you've got the Bike and Hike Trail, you have the Freedom Trail, the Rubber City Heritage Trail. So you have all these different connectors because, you know, just like, you know, we want to have, you know, a park, you know, think of some of Metro Parks as your park in your own backyard. We really like to be able to people to access a regional trail connection within a 10-minute walk or bicycle ride of your home or workplace. And there's no reason why we can't do that. If there's really, we learned many lessons from the pandemic. One of the most important lessons I feel is that parks, trails, and public spaces are no longer non-essential services. Previous to the pandemic, I think they've been treated as such, but they are not. Because if you think about it, where did people go to during the pandemic? Movie theaters, you know, shopping malls, any gathering, no concerts. They went to our parks, and they literally were just bursting. And so I think we cannot let this moment pass with recognizing that these are assets really for the future.
Well, Dan is kind to always point to, you know, the Metro Parks trails first, but Dan is working on a number of lateral trails to come to those trails that are already built, primarily the spine, which is our towpath. So we want those east and west communities to connect in, and all of those things take time. Metro Parks has a number of them on the boards. Dan always has a number of them on the boards, times 4 counties, right?
Yes.
So, you know, this is why we lean on each other. I mean, we need Dan's help at times to bring communities to the trail. Some communities are all about it. Some communities need a little additional discussion about it so that they understand the value and see the value. So some come easily and some don't. And that's Dan's expertise, as you can imagine. I love that he's got, you know, a Baptist preacher in his background and in his voice, because, you know, the passion that he has for that comes through. And when we need a little assistance bringing a community along, Dan is a fantastic partner for that, as you can all imagine. So this trail plan, as he said, is relatively unique. It is the beacon for which we are trying to follow, bringing those trails together. So, you know, stay tuned. That's that trend that's not really trendy. It seems to be here to stay, and the communities are still saying, please connect us to the towpath. Please connect us to these neighboring paths.
So this just really kind of illustrates the balance here. And that's something we also wanted to share with you, is the fact that, you know, I remember early on in this project, people kind of referred to it as, oh, this is just a tree hugger project. And I always kind of chafe at that. It's like, you know, well, there's nothing wrong with trees, by the way. I like trees. But it's about balance. And what we've learned is that, by the way, corporations like Akron Children's Hospital, First Energy, PNC Bank, they like trails too because they use our materials to recruit people to come and live and work in Northeast Ohio. And, you know, philanthropy likes it. Because obviously it's a quality of life, it's a legacy. Obviously park districts, park agencies, units of government, elected officials. Each of these groups has their own different motivations, but you have to balance them all, quite frankly. And I know we'll touch in a few minutes on the role of philanthropy, but I guess really what we really want to illustrate with this is, you know, you see the economic impact here. It's real dollars. We've measured it. $408 million of community and economic impact on an annual basis. 4,200 jobs are actually supported because of parks and trails, again along the Ohio Erie Canalway, and $34 million in tax revenue. My elected official partners actually particularly like that line there. And so really what we've learned is that's, you know, find out what information that your partners can react to and what motivates them, and then provide them with that information. It's really not any harder than that. But again, it takes everybody working together. I'll never forget when the Ohio Erie Canalway was designated in 1996. Congress said, why don't you go out there and build trails, preserve historic buildings and natural areas, but there's 2 catches. 1, we're not going to give you all the money, and 2, you have no authorities. So good luck. But here's the fact. Because of some of Metro Parks, we were the first county to be completed countywide and countywide. That's not an accident. That's a fact. It's because of leadership like Lisa and some of Metro Parks, City of Akron, all those partners. Obviously, if it feels like a mutual admiration society, it's because it is. Because we cannot really fulfill our mission without our partners.
Yep, true. I'm going to take a very quick sideline here because I realize a lot of times I know about our funding, and that's a question sometimes for the public. Yep. So in case you're wondering, Summit Metro Parks is supported by your tax dollars, which a levy just passed during a pandemic at a 73% rate, so thank you so much for that.
Actually, those are one of the highest in Ohio. That's rare.
Yeah.
That's extremely rare.
So, in case you're wondering, look at your tax bill. We get a small part of your property tax. That's what supports us. We are at 2 mills, which is the most a park district can ever ask for. So we realize that, and we're good with that. We're actually very fiscally sound, and my staff will tell you. They're downstairs. You can ask them. It takes a lot to spend money because I've been a single mom for a long time, so I know how to save. But what I want you to know is we don't take the fact that you support us lightly. You support us 90%. The other 10% are grants that we go after, and luckily we've been very successful with that. So philanthropy and grant money is incredibly important to us, and we are very strategic and specific when we come to ask. So if that ever happens, you'll know why. It's a very specific thing that we want to do that we don't think we can budget for. So we're very appreciative of that. But I wanted you to know the tax piece because you need to know. Just being fair.
No, this is good information.
Yeah.
So the role of philanthropy, notice how we kind of queued that up, Christine?
Yeah, we did.
And to me, it's critical. Lisa gave great background information about how they're funded. As a nonprofit organization, we're funded differently. We are funded, the breakdowns are approximately 35% foundation funding, 25% with events and programs, 20% individuals, 20% corporations. So it really, we'd like it to be more spread out, but it really tends to fall into those categories. But from our perspective, philanthropy plays such a critical role in our work. In many ways, it's actually like the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval. If you get endorsement from the Akron Community Foundation, other funders tend to fall in line. It sends a message. This project is worthy of your attention and your potential contributions. It also leverages significant amounts of private, local, and state and federal investment. When I go to Columbus or go to Washington and talk to our elected officials, they want to know who's in. And I have a list of who's in. And to me, that's why it's critical that this is truly a community project. Remember how I said I actually like the idea of the fact that it's a coalition and a collaboration? Because then we all have a shared ownership here. If it was one agency, like our National Park Service or some other agencies, they pay for everything, they own everything. And that tends to be challenging. But if everybody owns it, we all put our shoulder to the wheel. We all work together to make it happen. And it really does empower nonprofit organizations to develop long-term visionary plans. Because if you think about it, some of our elected officials, not a criticism, they're always thinking in terms of 2, 4, and 6 years, right? Because that's our election cycle. The projects we work on don't line up to 2, 4, and 6 years. When Mr. Regla started, the Ohio Erie Canalway project back in the 1960s, he had no idea it was going to be a 60-year project. And same thing with Congressman John Cyberly. So that's why it's incumbent upon us in the nonprofit sector to really have that long-term vision. Where do we want to be 20 years from now? And that's why your assistance is so important. And then, quite frankly, lastly, you provide that essential risk capital. And the best example is what I have up there with the Summit County Executive Russ Pry. And that is, I remember when we first talked about this Akron Civic Commons project back about 6 or 7 years ago. And we went around to our elected officials and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this because we want to get their buy-in and support. And I'll never forget, Russ Pry, God rest his soul, just an amazing community leader. He basically said, you have to do this because we in government cannot. If we risk and we fail, we get blamed. Nonprofits can actually take that risk. But by providing that risk capital, you enable us to take those risks. And sometimes in our projects, we fail fast and early, but we learn from those. And that's an honest to goodness truth. Because you don't have all the answers right up front. And by the way, it's better to fail on a $20,000 investment than a $20 million investment, right? And oftentimes we do the latter in this country. So that's what we've done a lot with. We've tested ideas early, we've learned, tested, failed, and move on and iterate. But that's why, again, philanthropy plays such a strong role.
Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a segue here, and we'll get back to philanthropy in a moment. Metro Parks is celebrating our 100th anniversary. So 1921, we were formed by Ohio Revised Code. Pardon me for grabbing notes here, but there's so much going on, I couldn't keep it all in my head. So I wrote down the fun things that we were doing for our Centennial. So first of all, we have a Centennial website. It's summitmetroparks100.org. So just add the 100 to our regular Summit Metro Parks website
address.
Sorry about that. And you'll get the special microsite that we put together. There's a lot of fun things here. As you can imagine, 100 years of photos, videos, audio recording, all the way back to our first director being interviewed. So there's a lot on this website that's just really fun to sit down and go through. So I invite you to go there. I'm going to tell you some other things that we are doing with the public for our 100th anniversary. So our Centennial Tour, you'll find these in the back. Sorry. And this is it's like a hiking spree in that there are different places you can visit. There are 20 different parks where we've installed a new interpretive panel that tells you a little bit about the history of that park. And they are near the parking lots, so if you don't want to hike, you don't have to. If you want to hike while you're there, I invite you to. So there's information in here, and there's some in the back, you can grab that. So our Centennial Tour, when you have completed your 20 and it's on the honor system, we have a commemorative leather key tag for you that has our Centennial logo on it. We are doing targeted programming about our history. You'll find that in the Green Islands. We are doing a social media campaign that's Centennial Trivia. So that's kind of fun if you want to get on any of those. You can do it right from your phone in your comfy chair. Right now we're running the hashtag MySMP campaign, which is you telling us your stories about something that happened in the Metro Parks or a visit or whatever you want. We are cataloging those, by the way. We have Centennial Groves. Our goal was to plant 100 acres of trees for our Centennial, and we are about halfway there. We're about a little over halfway through the year, so we're going to have to pick it up a little bit, but that's our goal for the year. We are opening 2 new areas. Obviously, this is one of them. We will be opening our first trail at Valley View, which is part of Cascade Valley, for the fall hiking spree. So that will be the Hiker's Choice Trail. And that will be your first time to be able to get out there and do a trail at Valley View. So we're really excited about that. That will be September 1st. We are capturing Summit Lake Nature Center stories. So a little bit like your Centennial stories, but what we're doing is having any of the personnel that are working here, if they get a story from someone that lives nearby, we're cataloging those as well. Since this is one of our new areas, we want people's stories of this area so we can capture that as well. We have a cultural resources department, and that's kind of a little known fact, but we have several people that do archaeology. We catalog, obviously, the stories of our visitors as well as employees. So our cultural resources for our properties are very important to us, so we want to preserve those. Summit Metro Parks ice cream. Who knew, right? SMP, salted maple praline. Oh my gosh. If you like a maple cream stick, that's what it tastes like. It's available. We partnered with Acme and Pavs, so you can get it at Pavs or you can get it at the Acme's on their shelves. And in the back are some coupons.
A hike is required following days.
Okay, and lastly, on our Centennial, in the back we have a new license plate frame that is just for this year. Instead of being white with yellow, it's brown and it's got our Centennial logo on it. Anything in the back that you'd like to have, of course, that's all, there's no cost for that, so just help yourself. So that's our Centennial, just the quick view. We would like to talk just for a few minutes about how we got in this building as part of the Reimagining Civic Commons project, which started 4 years ago. Demetrius, if you met her downstairs, her crazy idea at the time was, could we do a pop-up nature center? And I'm thinking the nature realm. And I said, well, you're going to have to give me some more here. And so she said, a pop-up nature center, can we rent a room? And immediately we thought, well, the Reach Center is right by where we're doing some site improvements, which came of RCC. And that is how the whole thing started. We asked if we could rent a room. We were able to rent a room. As a park district that has naturalists that do programming, you can imagine we have stuff. Boy, do we have stuff. So we brought some things from our storage. We were able to outfit the room with very little additional purchased. And we just started inviting kids in, and we suddenly found ourselves doing programs. Started with our sweet spot, some fishing, some hiking, some birding, and then we would get requests. So can you do a quilting circle? Well, sure. Do you know anybody with some sewing machines? Suddenly, women are coming in with their sewing machines and their, all of their makings, and then the quilting turned into multi-generational quilting, where we had grandmothers and granddaughters, which was an amazing thing. And suddenly we also found ourselves being asked for other things that we typically didn't do in our programming, but we would turn it around and say, we don't have that skill. Are you an artist? Would you like to do that program? Then we would set our residents up with the ability to do a program in our space. So this just turned into a different way of doing business than we ever imagined we could do. We learned many, many lessons during RCC, and that was one of them. We don't have to stay in the mold that we know. If we can do something different and serve the community, that's what we're going to do. So as our 3-month, it was going to be a 3-month lease, came to the 4th month, we asked if we could stay to the end of the year. Well, 3+ years later, we knew that the end of our lease, still on, is coming, and we didn't really want to pull up our roots that we had made. So as part of RCC, we saw that this building was sitting here, and yeah, if you want to go to the next one. So I've got just 2 before and afters for you. This is what it looked like when we were going, I wonder what's in there. I wonder if can we get a tour? We got a tour, we walked in, we screamed. Not really. But this was a pump house. And the purpose of this building, the ground floor was covered with the pumps that you saw, the pump that you saw outside, 4 of those, I think. Is that right, Dan? About 4 of those?
It was full of pumps.
So you were sliding between and trying to get an idea of what would this look like without these. Those pumps were important to the rubber industry because they were pulling cooling water from the lake, and then it was just a constant flow of water up and water back. So this floor was the pump master's residence, and there was a small apartment up here, kitchen, bathroom, a couple of bedrooms, and then out there where the concrete floor is, that was a sleeping porch. So, as we came upstairs, there was a hallway here, couldn't see much past the hallway, no window light, with our phones, we're looking, try to look things over. This building had good bones, is the bottom line there, and we wanted to see if we could do something with it. Our partner with the City of Akron heard us out, and they agreed to transfer it to us, as well as a little additional land so that we could do the parking lot. And then we just got down to business. What do we have to do to make this into a building? Because we're not leaving this community. So, that's the bottom line. You want to go to the next one?
Before remember we talked about the risk capital. So really the ability to actually do the pop-up nature center, those are the national funders. They gave us the funds, some parts of the Hales do a pop-up visitor center, and so that's why, something that started as an idea, remember we talked about just testing idea, now you get this amazing asset.
One more. So the one on the left, that was actually during construction, so that we had already taken down some walls, but our crews were able to do all the demolition, so therefore we saved some money. We got in-kind services from Lake Erie, Great Lakes Construction. They took out all the pumps in kind. Amazing. We could not probably have afforded to do that. So this project was really a project of love and wonderful philanthropy. If you don't mind, I wanted to make sure that I thanked those so you know how this came about. So of course, financial support through the Civic Affairs grant, Akron Community Foundation. Thank you so much. It's very important to us, as Dan said. When you get the support of ACF, you have something very good there. Also support from the Knight Foundation, Summit County Land Bank, Bridgestone Trust, Cicely McFawn Foundation, DuPont Clear into the Future Fund, Jacqueline Ross Foundation. Some of these were for programs specifically, so that we knew that we would be able to get started with programs as soon as we opened. So very appreciative of that. Obviously the in-kind, the one I didn't mention was AMHA. surprisingly, our driveway down here was owned half by the city of Akron and half by AMHA. Both were willing to vacate that so that we could actually have a driveway into the parking lot. It was a little bit important. So, you know, our gratitude, our unending gratitude for the support and the philanthropy. We're really appreciative.
So, Lock 3 Park, another component of Akron Civic Commons, you know, working with national funders, really asking ourselves, how might we look at our park assets and make them better? That's obviously a rendering of Lock 3 Park. It doesn't look like that. You probably don't recognize that photo. But it is Lock 3 Park. You see the Akron Civic Theater, the Ohio Erie Canal, and this is a rendering based upon community feedback about how might we turn Lock 3 Park into an amazing asset. Because quite frankly, if you go there today, especially on a day like today, it's a great place to get a suntan. It's not a real great place to have a family picnic because there's no shade. There really isn't a whole lot to do there. And the other thing I should add is it's an incredibly high-performing public asset for events, concerts, festivals. I mean, every Friday night, every weekend, there's just thousands of people in the space. But then come Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, there just aren't that many people in the space. And so the question is, how might we turn it, basically have the great event space, but then also have a great public space? And so really this is really from the residents, asking how might we really create a great public space that's equitable, accessible, and welcoming to everybody. You see the serpentine walkway, artwork, a performance pavilion, which by the way is we've gotten permission from the Maynard Foundation. It will be known as the Maynard Performance Pavilion in honor of Phil Maynard. And again, led by our incredible donor committee chairs, Bill and Becky Considine. So, so far they've raised over $520,000. Absolutely amazing. This is, to me, a really great shot because you can feel yourself in the space. People drive to Blossom. You don't have to drive to Lock 3. You can ride your bicycle, you can walk. And that's really what we want to be able to do. And then in the wintertime, those spaces there in front of the pavilion will be the ice skating facilities. And so that really is what we're trying to achieve here. Again, you see the quotes here from Mayor Horrigan. It really is about equity in public spaces. That's really what we focus on. Because everybody deserves great public spaces, regardless of your race, your gender, your income, your experience. And unfortunately, that's not been the case, particularly here in the Summit Lake neighborhood, which ironically enough, and it's no mistake that I approached Bill and Becky about being the honorary co-chairs, because Bill swam in the lake. Bill knows more about this lake than anybody. He's told me stories about how what your mom used to say. What are you doing in that water? And so having those personal connections to the space is just utterly amazing. And so this is the North Shore. It doesn't look like that. This is an artist rendering based upon community feedback. Because we have this great towpath trail that goes down one side of the lake, but how many lakes in this country do you know that there's a trail down one side of a lake? Now there's a reason, there's a story behind that, quite frankly. Not a story that we often tell, but we tell it because we're being transparent. Different sides of the lake have different racial makeup, it has different economic makeup, and quite frankly, to be very transparent with you, we would often talk about what we're doing here at Summit with our neighborhood residents at Summit Lake. They would get really kind of funny looks on their face, like, why would you do that? I've not had anything bad happen to me, but I hear it's kind of a sketchy neighborhood. And what we basically said, no, it's not. It's no different than any other urban neighborhood in this country. It's had things done to it. There used to be 2 schools in this neighborhood. Bill certainly knows that. There was Margaret Park on the northwest corner and Lincoln School up in the neighborhood. Lincoln School had a swimming pool that actually taught kids how to swim. And now they don't have any schools. So are we surprised when we cut off a neighborhood, we take away schools, that the neighborhood declines? Of course not. And so how might we change that? The west side of Summit Lake, a little bit higher income, higher housing stock, racial diversity is maybe more white than on the east side, which is more blended with persons of color and white. But to be perfectly transparent with you, Lisa's been in these meetings, we've heard comments when we first started talking about the trail on the lake, people saying, we don't want those people on our side of the lake. And I would tell you, yes, it is disappointing, but that's actually why we need to do Reimagining Civic Commons. Because we don't spend enough time together with people who look differently than us, who have different education, income, and experience. This is where I get a little preachy, so I apologize. But it's true. It's absolutely true. So I'm disappointed in those comments, but I'm not surprised. The homes on that side of the lake maybe don't necessarily have sidewalks in front of them. So there's a sense of maybe some of the lake is their lake. But we remind them very politely, it's the public's lake. There's public ownership all the way around this lake. And the commitment from the city is it will remain that way. So this is the public's lake. And so what we heard from the public is they want a trail around the lake so you see a bridge. And by the way, the trail around the lake is in 70% design. We're hopefully going to have our groundbreaking this fall, again, because of the Akron Community Foundation. You all get invited to it. That's going to be the first project around the gate, get the trail all the way around the lake. We also we've heard from the residents, they'd like to have a canoe and kayak share because not everybody can afford to rent a canoe or kayak. But a lot of people have canoes or kayaks, but they don't have places to store them. So here's the deal. We learned this from Philadelphia. It's called a canoe and kayak share. You've got a canoe or kayak, you don't have a place to store it, great. You get free storage. But here's the catch. You then allow your canoe or kayak to be used or borrowed by somebody. And so that's what's going to happen there on the North Shore. We've heard from residents. They'd like to see an ice cream shop, a place to get a cup of coffee, a sandwich. You can't get that in this neighborhood. And there are many places, great places on the Towpath Trail. When people talk about the Towpath Trail, oftentimes they talk about Kokomo National Park or Peninsula. And that's great. But you have to drive a car to get to Peninsula. You don't have to drive a car to get to Summit Lake. And if we do this right, and I think we will, in 5 years, people are going to say, have you been down to Summit Lake? Have you borrowed a canoe or kayak? Have you gotten an ice cream cone to sit on that swing? And the water is fine. We've done a study of that. We talk with people who fish here. They don't want us to talk about Summit Lake because it's their favorite. I kid you not. Bass, bluegill, catfish, pike. They don't. This is their private fishing hole. And so these are, again, more detailed renderings. Again, all this is based from resident feedback. The design there actually has a little bit of remnants of actually the Summit Lake Beach Park. Again, they selected all these concepts here. Here we are with the fundraising campaign. I would be remiss because my fundraising chairs would not be happy with me. But who would have thought, a year ago in the pandemic, we're trying to raise $10 million for both of these public spaces. Here we are a year later, we've raised more than half of that funds. So $14,734,500. Again, we have the Community Foundation, JR Foundation, all these amazing funders, but we're not there yet. You see the city of Akron, we just got notification from Congressman Ryan about $1 million earmark that's in the budget, but it's got to stay in there, Summit County government. But again, this really illustrates what we've all been talking about here. It takes everybody. We're not there yet. We still need to raise $5.2 million, and of that, we'd really like to raise $4 million in individual contributions. We've already raised 2.5 there. And Chris Uhas is also a member of our donor committee as well. You see all the rest of the members there. But really, I believe Bill and Becky's quote says it best. This is our opportunity. It's literally once in a generation. These opportunities only come by once. And we don't want to miss and swing. I mean, we really want to hit a home run on these. So that's it, I think, right? Thank you all very much.
At the Community Foundation, we believe very strongly in the power of collaboration, and there's no better example than the Summit Metro Parks as well as the Ohio Erie Canalway and these two leaders in our community who do it so well. So that's why we wanted them to highlight their programs today. But all of you have unique programs, and those are ones that we're considering in our upcoming Civic Affairs cycle, so we thank you for coming today. Let's open it up for questions for Dan or for Lisa. I know you have to have some. Bill.
Well, I can't miss the opportunity to acknowledge real leaders. What Dan and Lisa really model on a day-to-day basis is that spirit of collaboration, the spirit of community, and they know how to get feedback and input from the neighborhoods that we all serve. So let's put our hands together one more time. I also want to mention, as Dan said, this is my neighborhood. I grew up on Victory Street, just 3 blocks up the hill, in the same house my dad and his 10 siblings grew up in. And myself and my 4 younger siblings, we were there for my childhood. And this was our backyard, quite honestly. I played football right there at St. Mary's Stadium. The Summit Park baseball stadiums were where we played all our ball. We had a canoe livery that we could tip over and fall in the water and never sink because the chemicals there kept me. That's why my mom didn't want me in this lake. But I did see, growing up, as I reflect on it, what poor planning did to this neighborhood and did to the residents of the neighborhood. And when they put the freeway through, we lost thousands of good families. And I saw the schools deteriorate. Lincoln is where I went to kindergarten. It's no longer here. St. Mary's was my elementary school. South High School, all my buddies were at South High School, and it doesn't exist. Thornton Junior High School's gone. And that was just all poor planning. And we let this facility here kind of go downhill. I did visit the amusement park when it was still around. The dance hall had burned down in my early childhood. I don't remember that, but I do remember how the park even went downhill. So when I heard about this project, Becky and I started doing our research because of Chris Uhas. We were early investors in the Reach Center, and we're very pleased to see how that really brought the neighborhood together. I do sit on the Knight Foundation board, and one of their priorities within their community focus are public spaces. And when the project was brought forward to the Knight Foundation and they rated their communities, Akron came out #1 in terms of what they thought could be done because of the way they've engaged the neighborhoods. And that led to a couple of the gifts you saw, the $4 million for Sump Lake, and what is it now, $2 million for Block 3. And I believe that's only the beginning in terms of what Knight should do, because this is Jack Knight's home. And I think we're going to be able to get even more funds, especially if we can get other people to come forward and we can leverage those other gifts to get more Knight funds. Becky and I have used our donor advised fund at the Akron Community Foundation to match our personal gifts and then get other dollars to come forward. And it's just a great investment. And the ROI, just look at this lake. I mean, it's unbelievable. And what can be developed around it now, it's all up to us. So because of these folks here, it's a great story. So hop on board, get in one of those canoes, all right?
Thank you, Bill. And actually, if people are interested, there's materials on the back if you want more information. Thank you.
Other questions? Sandy?
When do you expect the trail to be finished south of Zorville?
You know what? I don't answer easy questions here this afternoon. No, it's a great question. So south of Zorville, right? Matter of fact, I was just down there yesterday, and we I don't know if you saw in our e-newsletter, but we're going to have a ribbon cutting for the section of Bolivar. That's going to take place August 16th. And then south of Zorville, it's about another 9 miles south to Dover, New Philadelphia. We've negotiated with a private property owner with a former rail line. That's another 4 miles. It's in planning and design right now. I anticipate probably 2022 to be completed, hopefully construction in 2023. Our goal is still to get it completed by 2025. It's pretty aggressive because the challenge going further south is it's privately owned, the canal and the towpath trail. But that's a good question. And so, with your support, we're going to be able to get it by 2025. The mayors of Dover and New Philadelphia are very supportive. I continue to remind them, you don't want to be, the city that's holding up this, regional connection here. So they're highly motivated.
Cleveland has done its part up north.
You are correct. You are correct. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions? Joe?
It's not a question so much as just a prologue to the story. When it comes to community engagement, for this site, it's worth celebrating some of the folks that have come before us. I've neglected to do so. This city and not the same yell every time I neglect to, so I have to make sure I do. Years before this was on the Civic Commons radar, you had Let's Grow Akron growing outside. You had Akron Community, Summit Action. Help me out here, guys. Akron Summit Community Action doing Talk in the Garden series, training people up on how to use vegetables. So there was an outside, an exterior community engagement that really let kind of the momentum move forward. You had someone like BuildCorps along with the lead creative interventionist do some pop-up stuff outside here, and really what we found is, man, we just don't have the organizational capacity to renovate a building that has giant lead pipes inside. So part of that reimagining Civic Commons process also brought a depth of capacity to the neighborhood and some partnerships that just have been welcomed and truly partnered. So I wanted to honor those that have come before as we walk with those who are coming with presently and just celebrate that narrative. So thanks. Not a question at all.
So something that we didn't talk about because it didn't quite fit what we were going to cover today, but if you looked outside, you see some beautiful gardens out there. Metro Parks is doing something it's never done before. We are partnering and including Let's Grow Akron here on this property. Those are their gardens, those are community gardens. So we are gonna share our space with them because together we can do some things that we couldn't do alone, and we realized that almost immediately. We loved what they were already doing here. They had to vacate the space because this got very messy as we were doing renovation. But you know, knowing that that was happening, we said, how might we do some programs together? How might we support you to do those programs? So we just kind of came up with a brand new way of including a partner on our property and in our world here at this center. So we're so excited to have them working with us. We're going to be able to do some awesome programming, especially through the winter. You know, you may or may not know all the wonderful things that Let's Grow Akron does, but you know, we now see the capacity to do some more growing, cooking, separating, you know, all the different things that you do with food when you grow it. From what kind of soil do you need? How much water does it need? So all of those learning tasks that you need when you want to grow your own food, that's what they do. And now that we can offer it, you know, as a public program in a little bit bigger way than they've ever been able to do it. So we're really excited about all the possibilities and all the places that will go.
I just want to remind everybody that to pile on to the love for Lisa Nunn and Let's Grow Akron, they continue to manage the farmers market that was started back in 2013 at the Summit Lake Community Center that brought together, you know, 13 organizations in the community, including South Street Ministries, ASCA, Summit Food Coalition, Countryside Conservancy, and many more, to really start that farmers market in this community that was blocked off by so many people. It was redlined in the past, and so when you look at food desert neighborhoods, that overlay of redline neighborhoods, it's almost an identical match. And so partnering with groups like Let's Grow Akron to start a farmers market that has been able to continue and thrive, I want to encourage everybody to go down and see what they have. The food is abundant and beautiful and affordable.
On Tuesdays.
Today.
Let's go, I was just gonna say,
Until 7 p.m. tonight.
yeah.
So as soon as
Every
we
Tuesday.
wrap this up, stop talking,
Go get your vegetables.
you're gonna grab some vegetables
Yep.
and go for a free guided canoe trip.
That's right.
So get out in the water and grab some vegetables.
Thank you, Ben.
Any other questions? As I said earlier, there are so many programs that are intermingled within this community. I mean, Leadership Akron is in the room. They use this facility to bring their classes to highlight this community. The railroad is another important aspect in our community. So each and every one of you are very important to us. We cannot do what we do at the foundation without your programming and services that you provide. So we're very proud to be able to support you. Again, our grant dollars don't last forever. We wish we could fund every request that we have, but our board and our community investment committee, those that are in the room, have tough decisions to make. And again, we want to thank you for coming today and being a part of this. Again, we'll be around to answer any questions you may have. We do have ACF staff that are in the room. I thank them for joining us. Our Chief Development Officer, Margaret Medzi, our Chief Financial Officer, Steve Swolenbach, is here. And I also want to introduce for the first time the newest member of our staff, Darlene Schuler. She's actually an employee of Akron Public Schools, but she's being paid for by Akron Community Foundation. She is our partner with the middle school transformation process that ACF is spearheading. So Darlene is going to be working with nonprofits in Summit County to create service learning projects and experiential learning projects for our middle school students. So Darlene, can you stand and wave, because I want them to get to know you. So when Darlene calls you, please take her call. Again, if there's no other questions, we thank you for coming today. Thank you to Dan and to Lisa for being here, and we'll see you at the next one.